With massive test matches coming up against Ireland and New Zealand, I wanted to rank the Springboks options for the fly-offs in 2024. In today's video, we're going to be going through 11 fly-half options, whether I think they're going to be a Springbok, whether they're just on the cusp, or whether they are only a club player. As always, I want to hear exactly what you guys think down in the comments. Also, if you haven't, make sure you hit that subscribe button because we are trying to hit 100,000 subscribers by the end of the year. So first up, let's start with the Bulls. Now, the first fly-off option is Johan Goosen. Now, obviously, Goosen has done it for the Springboks in the past. He's quite a veteran at the moment, but he has had a very, very good season for the Bulls. However, just looking at all the options in this group of players, I'm just not sure if Johan Goosen can cut it with the top dogs. Yes, he's had a very, very good season. He brings the experience. He's played for the Springboks before, but with Rassie and the coaching staff's move to sort of a younger group of players with eyes on the 2027 and 2031 World Cup, I'm going to put Johan Goosen in at club level. Then staying within the Bulls, the second option that the Bulls give us is Chris Smith. Now, Chris Smith did start over the weekend, but again, I just don't think he is the caliber of a Springbok at the moment. He did come on the stage very, very young for the Vodacom Bulls, but I just don't think he's really broken through yet. He is a very, very good player, quite physical. He has good vision and he's good with the boot. But for me, I'm going to put Chris Smith in at the club level. Moving on to our next franchise, and it is the Cheetahs. Now, I don't know if many people know much about George Lawrence, but he came up through Boerland and then made his move to the Cheetahs. He's still quite young at 24 years of age, and he has been having a very, very good season. Again, I'm just not sure if he's at the caliber yet to sort of push for a Springbok position, if he's even on the radar of the Springbok coaches. I know a lot of us haven't heard much about George Lawrence just because he plays for the Cheetahs and we don't often see the Cheetahs play, but I do think he still has a couple of years. He needs a move to the Bulls or the Stormers to really put his name on the map. So for me at the moment, George Lawrence also goes in the club category. Then we move on to the Sharks, and there's two very, very interesting options here. I'm first going to start with Curwin Bosch. Now, Curwin Bosch a couple of years ago was pinned to be the next great fly-off of South Africa. He had a couple of test matches for South Africa, but he was never at that standard of a test match player. He has all the flair, his defense isn't very good, and he hasn't been in great form for the Sharks this season. I mean, the Sharks, it's a very difficult team to be in at the moment because of the season that they're having, but Curwin Bosch just hasn't stepped up to the plate for the Sharks, which is why they've started to bench him now and play Sia Mazuku ahead of him. Now, Curwin Bosch had all the potential. I just think he might be slightly over the hill. Maybe he puts in a very, very good shift next season and we could potentially see him win another Springbok cap. But for me at the moment, I don't even think Curwin Bosch is on the cusp. I'm going to put Curwin in at club level. I know that might be a little bit harsh given the talent that he is, but he needs to start performing if he wants to play for the Springboks. Then staying in the Sharks, we have Sia Mazuku, who has finally now started ahead of Curwin Bosch. He's come up through the Cheetahs, had a phenomenal season for the Cheetahs, and then transferred over to the Sharks, but they seemed not to play him. He wasn't even on the bench for a couple of games. Curwin Bosch started, but now all of a sudden he's starting to get a little bit more game time for the Sharks. So I'm interested to see what he can do. I saw him a little bit at the Cheetahs. He's a phenomenal, phenomenal fly half. He can also play the center role and his kicking is pretty good. But at the moment, I think he just needs a couple more caps for the Sharks, starting a couple of big games to really put him on the map. So for me, I'm going to put Sia in the club level. The next franchise we're moving into is the Lions. Now, the first player I want to speak about is Sanele Nohamba. Now, he is normally a scrum half, but when Jordan Hendrickse got injured for the Lions, he did move to that number 10 role and he played phenomenally well. And I think it's definitely more of an asset to have him that he can play scrum off and fly off and be used as somewhat of a utility back. Yes, I think he prefers the scrum off position, which is why we put him in yesterday's video. But he proved that he can put that number 10 jersey on. He's a great general. His feet are amazing. He's got the vision. He's got the kicking. I think Nohamba could be the next big star in South Africa. And I would love to see him start a couple of test matches for the Springboks this season. So for me, I'm actually going to put Nohamba in the Springbok category. I think he's surpassed on the cusp category. He's in the lineman squad. Obviously, he's caught the attention of the coaching staff. And like I said, I would love to see him wearing the green and gold. Then staying in the Lions, we've got Jordan Hendrickse. Now, Jordan Hendrickse is still very young, 22 years of age. He plays fly off for the Lions. And while he's good, I don't think he's great yet. He still is very, very young. He's a raw talent. Again, has the vision, has all the attributes to be a great Springbok fly-off. I think he just needs a couple more caps under his name, a little bit more experience. So for me, I'm going to put Jordan Hendricks on the cusp. I think he does have to do a little bit more. Yes, he is in the alignment squad. He has caught the attention, and I'm sure he is in the plans for the next sort of 8 years in that Springbok lineup. He just needs a little bit more experience at the moment. And then we move into the Stormers, which is going to give us 3 options. The first one, Sasha Mgumazulu, who's burst onto the scene for the Stormers. He's more of a utility back at the moment, but he did play fly-off in high school. We've seen him play 12 for the Stormers, but I'm sure he could definitely slot in at that number 10 position. Much like Nohamba, he has that extra factor. He can be that utility back that plays 15, plays 12, plays 10, can play pretty much anywhere on the pitch. He's a young, raw talent that has been identified again as one of the future Springboks in South Africa. Again, I just think he needs a little bit more experience. He was also named in the alignment camp squad, so I think he is going to get a couple of caps this year for the Springboks. But for me, at the moment, I think he's on the cusp, especially in the fly-half position. He's probably better suited for a number 12 or 15 position. So that's why I'm putting him on the cusp for the fly-half position. And then we move into our 3 big dogs within South African rugby. The first one I want to talk about is Damian Willemse. Now, for me, Damian Willemse is probably the most in-form rugby player on the planet at the moment. Everything he touches turns to gold at the moment. Yes, we've seen him play 15 for the Springboks and now 15 for the Stormers, which I think probably is the best position for Damian Willemse, but he can slot in at that number 10 position. Again, he played 10 in high school, and we know how talented, how good Damian Willemse is. So for me, I wouldn't mind having Damian Willemse starting at 10. I think they are going to experiment a little bit in that 10 position, just because I don't think our depth is that great in the fly-off position. I know there's 11 options here, but realistically, there's probably only 3 or 4 that can play 10 at the moment. So for me, I'm going to put Damian Willemse in the Springbok category for the fly-off position. I think he would easily pull it off, but I also think he's much, much better at the number 15 position for the Springboks. Then staying in the Stormers, we move on to Manie Libbok, who was somewhat of a hero story in the 2023 World Cup. Handré Pollard was injured, couldn't start the World Cup. Manie Libbok took the reins and did a great job. The only caveat to that statement is that Manie Libbok's kicking probably let South Africa down a little bit in terms of points. Obviously, we still won the World Cup, but that is a game that he needs to work on a little bit. Even over the weekend for the Stormers, he missed a couple of kicks, and I think he's probably one of the most complete rugby players in South Africa in that number 10 role in terms of attacking and defense, but his kicking does need a little bit of work. Obviously, Manie Libbok is probably going to start the majority of the test matches this year, so I'm going to put him in that Springbok category. I think he's an absolutely phenomenal talent, and he's probably going to be the man to lead us into the 2027 World Cup. And then finally, we've got probably the best fly-off that South Africa's produced in a long time. Handré Pollard basically won us the 2019 World Cup, kicked us to glory in the 2023 World Cup. His kicking is why he plays fly-off for South Africa. I think Manie's attack and defense is probably a little bit better than Handré Pollard, but Pollard's boot is so reliable that you almost have to play him in that number 10 role. He's also been having a great season for the Leicester Tigers, and I still think he has another World Cup in him. So for me, I'm going to put Handré Pollard in that Springbok category. So that's how I see those 11 options lining up. I do think we have a couple of very, very talented fly-offs that can play for the Springboks, but I do think our depth is lacking a little bit. There's a big jump from the Springbok category to the club category. So if Manie, Damian Willemse, Handré Pollard and Nohamba can do the job for South Africa, it's going to be interesting to see what Rassie picks. But I think those are our 4 best fly-offs in South Africa at the moment. As always, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, leave this video a like, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Take it easy. Peace.